Welcome to Boston and beautiful Fenway Park. The Blue Jays made Fenway Park a private little playground last night as they put one on the Red Sox 14-1. On 14 hits, they pounded out a pair of home runs. Melky Cabrera with a big night, hitting 2 home runs in the ball game. Melky drove in 5, and they're going to try to do that again tonight. Danny Valencia on the Blue Jays bench tonight. The right-hander just picked up in a deal from the Kansas City Royals. He has hit well against lefty pitching in the past. Taking a look at the lineup for John Gibbons. Jose Reyes top of the order, and then Melky Cabrera. We got a 5-game hit streak, and look at the numbers during this hit streak. He is 9 for 21 with 7 extra base hits and 8 RBIs. He's been a red-hot hitter coming out of the All-Star break, and then down in the 8th spot. How about the return of Ryan Goins? He's played 7 games since he's come back to the minor leagues. He's 9 for 25. Career-high 4 hit games and a career-high 4 RBIs in last night's game. Goins looks like a different hitter at the plate right now.
Driving the ball, a couple of doubles and a triple also since his recall amongst those 9 base hits for Ryan Goins. That's a nice sign for the Blue Jays since he has come back up from the minor leagues. Ruby De La Rosa, 9th start of the season and 5th here at Fenway Park for De La Rosa. Blue Jays saw De La Rosa just 5 days ago in his shortest outing of the year. Gave up a career high 7 runs to the Blue Jays. 6 of them were earned, and they pounded them 8-0 back at Toronto. He came over from the Dodgers in that big trade a couple of years ago. That included Adrian Gonzalez and Carl Crawford and Josh Beckett. De La Rosa, there are his numbers for the year.
Just 25 years old. He had Tommy John surgery in August of 2011. He's got a good arm, but the Blue Jays roughed him up last time out. So De La Rosa is set. Reyes steps in. It is 21 degrees here on a cloudy night in Boston. Here's the first pitch of the game. Way outside, and we are underway. Reyes last night went 0 for 2. Had an RBI on a sac fly. He drives this one to left. Daniel Nava is there. 1 down. Melky Cabrera had his 3rd career multi-home run game here last night, and it started on the first pitch he saw.
Fastball in the inner half. They tried to slip it by him, and Melky said, "Not so fast." Right into the bullpen for the home run, then off of Felix Doubront, who they really roughed up in last night's ball game. This one is out of the ballpark for Melky Cabrera. He's the 3rd Blue Jay to have a multi-home run game this season.
Blue Jays have had multi-home run games in 3 of the 4 games they've played here at Fenway this year. Melky takes the first pitch strike. Edwin Encarnacion had multiple home run games in back-to-back games back in May 20th and May 21st. Swinging a fly ball to left deep. Daniel Nava's got room. He's in front of that scoreboard and makes the catch. 2 fly ball outs to start the game. Let's take a look at the defense for the Boston Red Sox. A little bit different every night. It's Nava in left, Jackie Bradley Jr. in center, and Brock Holt is in right field tonight. Bogarts and Drew on the left side of the infield. The Gold Glover Dustin Pedroia at second. Mike Karp makes his 13th start at first, and Christian Vasquez, a rookie behind the plate.
Whenever he played Boston, you just love to talk about Dustin Pedroia. He set a club record last season with 69 errorless games at second base to start the season. He's had it again this year, just 2 errors. In fact, he is tied with Ian Kinsler for the fewest errors by a second baseman with 100 games started. Just 2.
Jose Bautista was the DH last night. He went 2 for 5 in the game. He drew another walk last night. Good night for Bautista to get off his legs for at least half the game. He was the DH. Foul back. The walk Bautista took last night was his 70th. He is 2 behind the AL leader, Carlos Santana.
That's why you see that great on-base percentage of .416 from Jose. It always seems to be good for at least 1 home run in this ballpark per series.
Outside off the plate, it's 1-2.
One of the problems that De La Rosa had against the Blue Jays, he just didn't have the control that he needed. 4+ innings, 9 hits, 7 walks. He had 7 runs, 2 walks, both of them in the first inning.
Breaking ball way outside. Bautista had a single against De La Rosa in the first inning of that last start last Thursday. Two balls and 2 strikes, 2 outs. Look out, way inside. He had to bail out in a hurry.
Almost walked right into that one. You can see all those pitches away from Jose, trying to stay away from his power. Now they're going to try and bust him in. Jose has to jump back out of the way.
Here's the 3-2 pitch. Ball 4. Walk number 71 for Bautista. De La Rosa has a good arm, and he's going to throw a lot of fastballs, but he'll come at you with a wide assortment of pitches as well.
His second best pitch, I think, is his changeup. That's a good one. He's been a little bit inconsistent with it. Fastballs in the low 90s. We've seen that already. And the changeup, he's got the slider and the curveball. Blue Jays did a good job last time laying off that changeup. He's been getting hit hard in the month of July off that changeup, over 330. Blue Jays did a good job of making him throw it for a strike.
Catcher Diana Navarro in the cleanup spot. Navarro did not play in last night's game with R.A. Dickey. The knuckleballer going. Josh Tolley fought last night. Navarro had the game-winning hit on Sunday at Yankee Stadium. There's a strike. It's 1-1. Defense basically straight away for Navarro. He'll spread it out. Just a slight edge toward the pool side in the outfield. De La Rosa throws it into the seats for some reason. No reason at all to really make a throw on Bautista. He looked like he was just checking in on Bautista. Wasn't set with the sign, and he throws it into the seats.
And John Gibbons is going to come out and talk about this one first of all. Jose is about a step off of the bag right there, and it's thrown into the seats, and he's asking if he stepped off first. If he steps off, then Bautista goes to third base. That's 2 bases.
Yeah, it's a chance now. Andy Fletcher's the crew chief. He was at third base, and they're going to wave it off. And
why did he throw to first base?
Yeah, there was no reason. Bautista was about a half a foot off first base. I don't know that he just kind of felt he wasn't ready to make the pitch, and he went to first base. Pitchers will do that from time to time, but that cost him an error.
Well, he got the first 2 outs very quickly. He jumped ahead of Bautista 0-2 and then tried to nibble against Bautista and ended up walking him. Now he throws it away and he's in the scoring position. What looked like a quick inning right now, they're making him work.
There's one downstairs, and it's 2 balls and a strike. We had mentioned Blue Jays have taken a page out of the Red Sox book from a year ago. Red Sox have always been a very patient club, working the starters, and so far this season the Blue Jays have done a good job against Boston doing just that. Upstairs now 3-1. What a turnaround inning. Bautista working De La Rosa for the 2-out walk.
That's the one that really surprised me. He jumped ahead 2 fastballs, boom, boom, strike 1, strike 2, and then tried to be too perfect, ended up walking him. And now he is behind Navarro.
There's a high fly ball into shallow center field. Jackie Bradley Jr. coasts in. He's there. The inning is over. So the error and the walk did not factor in. We'll go to the bottom of the first. Marcus Stroman will take them out here at Fenway when we come back. Holt, Nava, and Pedroia, top three in the order. Then David Ortiz, the DH. He drops down in the cleanup spot tonight. The last 16 games, he's pounded out 6 doubles and 6 home runs, and he's gotten off to a great start in the month of July, driving in runs. And then in the 7th spot is Sander Bogaerts. Against the Blue Jays this year, they haven't been able to figure him out. He's got a .359 average with 5 doubles, a home run. He's driven home 3. They are set to take on Stroman. They didn't like facing Stroman the last time they saw him.
Not at all. 11th career start for Marcus Stroman this season. Can't pitch any better than he did his last time out against the Boston Red Sox. 7 innings and gave up just 1 hit. That was in the 7th inning by Shane Victorino. A couple of walks and 7 strikeouts. The third time in 4 starts where he has thrown 7 innings and gave up no earned runs. 6 no-hit innings last time out for Stroman. He had a great breaking ball going in that start.
Now it's time to take a look at the defense behind Marcus Stroman. In the outfield is Cabrera, Gose, and Bautista from left to right. On the infield, Munenori Kawasaki's at third, Reyes and Goins up the middle, Francisco starting for the 8th time at first base, and Gianna Navarro back behind the plate for Marcus Stroman.
I'll tell you, Ryan Goins at second base. You and I talk about it every night since he has come back. He's been the glue to this infield in the middle of the diamond. He can play some second base. He's got a great arm. He has good instincts. He moves quickly, soft hands. He's been doing it all defensively for the Blue Jays. He hasn't made an error yet this season.
He's made 1 error in his career. That was last year. Brock Holt takes a first pitch strike from Marcus Stroman. Holt was 0 for 3 against Stroman last time out. Strike 2. Brock Holt, a little bit of a slump, and he told me around the batting cage, Blue Jays got me in a slump. Pitching me tough right now, and I haven't been able to figure things out. There's that breaking ball.
Well, the guy last night was pretty tough for the Blue Jays on the Boston Red Sox. R.A. Dickey's knuckleball was fantastic. And he had some of those Red Sox hitters talking to themselves.
How much of it is a challenge of it is it for these Red Sox tonight to face the Stroman stuff?
I love where Marcus Stroman is pitching in this rotation behind R.A. Dickey. You have to deal with his knuckleball and his slow stuff, and then all of a sudden you get the fireballer with the good breaking ball right behind him. That's a tough adjustment.
Strike 3 right down the middle. Brock Holt strikes out. R.A. Dickey, according to Dustin Pedroia, was as good as he has been all year. Pedroia thought he had a terrific knuckleball, and the numbers back that up.
Well, on top of the great movement that he had in last night's ball game, he changed speeds, not just 2 different changes of speeds. He had a slow one, and he put a little bit more on it, then just a little bit more, and then he threw that 80-mile-an-hour knuckleball. He was terrific in the ball game last night, and we talked about it. He needed to make a statement. He did with those 10 strikeouts.
Well, he sure did. Marcus Stroman pitching behind R.A. Dickey, and then Burley comes after Stroman. It's a pretty good mix. Knuckleball, power, finesse. 3 in a row. That ball is jammed and inside on Nava. Daniel Nava hitting in the 2nd spot tonight. Pedroia drops down to 3 and Ortiz at 4. Nava in the game last night went 1 for 4. He had a strikeout. Another bouncing ball. A lot of late action on Stroman's fastball. He's starting to incorporate more 2-seam fastballs and created a more dramatic movement with that fastball. But even his 4-seam fastball has life to it.
Yes, and he can cut it if he wants to, but they're not letting him throw too many cutters. He's got the curveball and the slider. And I love the idea that he's using that 2-seamer where he's sinking it a little bit more. Doesn't look phased, does he? I mean, he loves these kind of atmospheres. It's kind of challenge for a young pitcher.
Yeah, he likes the big stage, that's for sure. The only time we have seen him really kind of dealing with that was his first start at Yankee Stadium. He's been in Yankee Stadium before as a fan. He grew up on Long Island, New York.
That was June 17th. It's also the last time he lost a ball game.
2-2. Right down the middle. Nava thinking just like Brock Holt, expecting to get a breaking ball.
And that's Diana Navarro. He is really behind that plate, taking these pitchers to the next level. We've seen it with Mark Burley with 2 strikes using the fastball. We've seen it with now Marcus Stroman tonight. First 2 batters, they're looking for the breaking ball, and he's throwing the fastball right down the middle.
When Stroman one-hit the Red Sox last time out, he didn't shake off Navarro the whole game. So he trusts his catcher. Pedroia takes one down and away. Dustin Pedroia is having an off year. Just 4 home runs, and you can say that just about with everybody in this Red Sox lineup. He's hit safely in 4 of his last 5 games, but that is on the heels of an 0 for 17 that he snapped at Rogers Center.
They pounded the ball last year, the Boston Red Sox. This year, not so much. They only have 2 players with an OPS, that's an on-base plus slugging average, over 800 this year. Last year, they had 6. They play a lot of 1-run games. They played 40 1-run games this year.
Another fastball. This one missed off the plate outside. The reason the fastball is so effective with 2 strikes is because all these veteran hitters shorten up. They're trying to protect the plate. And they can handle breaking balls, but you put that little extra mustard on the fastball and they'll be late. Bouncing ball to short. Reyes unloads in a hurry. 3 up, 3 down for Marcus Stroman in the bottom of the first. They've played 1 inning here at Fenway. It's a scoreless game. And the rundown tonight, Blue Jays option Rasmussen and activate Valencia. So they've opened up a spot on the roster for Danny Valencia. He's in uniform. He's in the dugout tonight. And Rob Rasmussen last night pitched 2 innings in that blowout, and he has since been sent to the minor leagues. So for the moment, the Blue Jays have a 6-man bullpen. And they've got another right-handed bat on the bench.
5 options off the bench tonight, 6 down in that bullpen. And John Gibbons was saying before the game, it's probably day to day. He doesn't like carrying 6 relievers in the bullpen. So that could change after tonight's ball game, he was saying.
Juan Francisco takes ball 2 outside. The bullpen has been very good of late. The addition of Aaron Sanchez has given him a little more power from the right side. McGowan's been good. in that roll out of the bullpen. There's a drive to right. Brock Holt got a good break and runs it down. Holt's been a valuable player for the Red Sox this season.
Blue Jays on Sportsnet. Brought to you by the 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays. And by Home Hardware, homeowners helping homeowners with expert advice.
Beautiful night here at Fenway Park. Those are the Green Monsters seats high above this wall in left field here at Fenway Park. Colby Rasmus. Colby's the DH tonight, batting .218 for the season. Inside with that fastball. This should be a good matchup for Rasmus given the velocity that De La Rosa features. Colby's a great fastball hitter.
The harder, the better he likes it. And you've got a pitcher, I think, in De La Rosa who just doesn't have command of all of his pitches right now. So if he falls behind, Colby's going to get his share of fastballs.
Two balls and his strike. Got that fastball in on his hands. The Red Sox utilizing that dramatic shift on the right side of the infield for Colby Rasmus, of course, the architect of all these Red Sox shifts. Brian Butterfield, the former Blue Jays coach. And look at where they're bunched up. Stephen Drew, Pedroia, and Mike Carp.
That's exaggerated right there. Gigantic hole right up the middle. Gigantic hole the other way. But it says, the scouting reports must say, Brian Butterfield says he's going to pull the ball extremely to the right side of the infield.
Inside. Well, if it was bowling, you could pick up the split with one good roll of the bowling ball. They're close enough. They all knock down. I have never seen anybody in that position before. The three infielders are really bunched up.
It's the triangle. Triangle defense right there.
There's a drive. There's no defense for this. Bradley looking up. Goodbye. Home run. Colby Rasmus. Number 14 for Colby to straightaway center.
Can't put the triangle out in the seats in center field. Rasmus smoked it, and it was a fastball, and it was down. I told you, the harder the pitcher throws, the more Colby likes it. And that ball was covered to center field.
Home run number 14, RBI number 33, and the Blue Jays have taken the early lead. Munenori Kawasaki.
Go down and get it. Fastball over the middle.
Nothing like great sound of positive contact, and that was a crisp crack of the bat. Off the plate inside. Kawasaki with a 1-1 count. Munenori had a good night last night. He scored a career high 3 runs in that whitewash effort of the Red Sox. Mooney always has fun wherever he is, and before the game he was signing autographs for the Blue Jay fans in attendance and having a good time with young and old alike.
Teach me that move. I see you do it on television. Show me how to do it.
Way inside. Now it's a full count to Kawasaki.
Mooney played some second base last night. He shifted over to third base when Jose Reyes came out of the ball game. He was all over the place and very productive. Banged the ball over the left fielder's head last night.
Throws this one foul. He's going to say that it hit his foot, and the umpires have not indicated such, and he's going to be out 3 unassisted. Kawasaki saying the ball hit my foot, and now John Gibbons going to have to come out and help Kawasaki and see if they can't get an appeal.
Well, this is where replay is good right here, I think. Kawasaki says that ball hit me on the foot. The umpire said no. The Red Sox say no. So, hey, take a look at the replay. That'll let you know.
Well, Kawasaki never left home plate. He always felt like it was something that he was going to end up with.
You can see DeMarlo Hale. He's on the horn to find out.
Well, that's difficult to tell there. The foot was moving at the same time the ball came down, but it certainly hit in that vicinity. But Kawasaki is going to end up with a ground out to the first baseman.
Well, it looked like it moved his foot around home plate, but not enough evidence, so they called it off.
So now there are 2 outs. Ryan Goins with a career game last night. Goins had 4 hits. Boy, he's swinging the bat very well. And it's a totally different swing than we saw earlier in the season. We mentioned he was sent out on April 26th. At that time, he was hitting 150. He had 1 RBI. And he just wasn't getting it done. And it was a very tentative swing. He was like feeling for the ball.
And right now he says, I'm just going up there. I'm not worried about the position of my hands or if I'm spread out too much. I'm just seeing the ball and just trying to make a good swing on it. Stay relaxed at the plate.
There's another hit for Goins. Comes with 2 strikes. Up and away. He stayed on it and he drills it into left. Not trying to do too much, taking what the pitcher gives him.
Yeah, just swing it. A lot of times as a hitter, you can really paralyze yourself if you're up there thinking too much, and next thing you know, the ball's on top of you. He's saying, I'm just going to relax. I'm not going to think about anything else except just taking a good swing at that baseball.
2-out single for Goins. Second hit of the inning. Colby Erasmus with a 1-out home run here. It's giving the Blue Jays a 1-0 lead. De La Rosa made a throwing error on a similar pickoff throw to first in the first inning, that it didn't cause any problems for him. Bautista went to second, but he was stranded there. Anthony Gose in the number 9 spot. John Gibbons has been consistent with his use of Gose. When there's a big outfield, he'll figure out a way to get Anthony Gose into the game.
He says he just does too many things for his team to help him win games. Great defense with the speed. He makes things happen when he is on the bases. He can steal a base, I think, as easy as anybody on the ball club. And he needs to play. He needs to play to see what he can do here.
Anthony will be 24 on the 10th of August. He came to the Blue Jays July 29th, 2010, 2 years ago. Four years ago, actually, 2010. On
Today,
this date.
On this day, so it's the 4-year anniversary for Anthony.
He came to the Blue Jays from Houston for Brett Wallace, first baseman. Wallace is now back in AAA Buffalo with the Blue Jays. 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Ground ball. Stephen Drew will go to first. The inning is over. But the Blue Jays break out on top. Colby Erasmus with a solo home run. 1-0 Jays. David Ortiz will start things off. Non-perishable food items and cash donations to the ballpark, and the Lady Jays will be there to collect those offerings. Mystery bags will be available for a monetary donation, so call the Blue Jays at 416-341-1234 for tickets, or you can always get your tickets online at bluejays.com. The Lady Jays Food Drive, August 8th through the 10th. David Ortiz stepping in, batting 4th tonight. Ortiz was 0 for 3 against Marcus Stroman. Ortiz, over his last 16 games, has 6 doubles and 6 homers. He's driven in 22 runs. He is the one Red Sox hitter that's swinging the bat well, and there aren't many of them. They've had a down season. In July, he has 25 RBIs. That's the most in the majors.
We're talking about Red Sox players who had an on-base plus slugging over 800 last year. Ortiz was at 959. This year it's at 849, which is 12th in the American League. He's got those 25 home runs. You combine he and Mike Napoli, the only other player over 800. Together they have 37 of the 81 home runs that the Red Sox have hit this season, so you can navigate around that big power bat.
Bounced foul on the fastball. Ortiz has driven in all 4 of the Red Sox runs over the last 2 games. He didn't have much help.
He also hit a 3-run home run. That was the only runs that the Red Sox scored Sunday in a victory. He's done that 6 times in his career.
His numbers against the Blue Jays have been great. He has been consistent. He's hit more home runs against the Blue Jays than any hitter. His season has gotten better and better as it has gone on. The RBI numbers are up: 14 in April, 17 in May, 21 in June, and now 25 in July. Full count. He's late on that fastball, took an awkward swing. David Ross, the backup catcher, trying to win some friends here, as he's got a whole bunch of kids behind the dugout. Pay attention, kids. It's bubblegum time. High and deep to right. Bautista at the wall, and he makes the catch. Ortiz hit it far, but not far enough. Bautista got right to the wall, measured how much room he had, and he made the catch.
You know what Jose did is he stayed sideways to that ball. He got back and he measured it. He knew it wasn't going to leave the ballpark. That one a little bit too much off the end of the bat, and Jose gets back. He turns, stays turned. Okay, he's in an athletic position, finds the wall and takes it in right in front of the wall in right field as Big Papi just misses another home run.
Mike Carp takes one down and away. Of course, that 3-run home run you talked about created an awful lot of controversy down in Tampa Bay.
Still talking about it.
Ortiz hit it off of Chris Archer, and obviously he knew he hit it out of the park, and he flipped the bat aside. And that got everybody upset. There's a pop into shallow left. Melky Cabrera calls for it, and left fielder makes the catch. 2 down. Josh Tolley had a good answer for Chris Archer as far as being upset about the home run bat flip. He said, keep the ball down. Don't give up home runs.
They were talking on one of the baseball shows this afternoon, and it was on in the Blue Jays clubhouse today. When Chris Archer struck out Daniel Nava earlier this season, he was jumping off the mound and doing all high fives and fist pumps and everything like that. And Nava's going like, hey, what's up with that? So wait a minute now. You're upset when David Ortiz homers?
Yeah, you can't have it both ways, that's for sure.
Nope.
Stephen Drew takes it inside. It's 2 balls and no strikes to the Red Sox shortstop.
I guess if you don't want anybody else showing any emotion against you, you can't show any emotion to them.
It's an emotional game, and there are times when the emotions are going to rise to the top. Nobody was more emotional than Dennis Eckersley. And when he got a save, he pumped his fist. He pointed at the hitter. He told guys to get out of here. You're done. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And if you didn't like it,
yeah,
you had a bat. You could do something about it. Try and get a hit against him.
Well, nobody was more colorful than Reggie Jackson. Yeah, he's the one that probably started all the demonstrative acts after hitting a home run. He called those home runs walk-away jobs. He'd hit one to win a game, and he'd walk away. There's his strike. Little changeup he got in there for a strike at 85 miles an hour.
How about a pitcher that pitched right here, very short time, Oil Can Boyd. He was pretty demonstrative on the mound, wasn't he?
He sure was. Very animated, that's for sure. The game has been full of characters. Ball 4. We'll go back and show you the bat flip that created all the controversy on Sunday.
Well, it's a long home run, and there's the flip and the throw, and then he took his time coming around the bases. I mean, this was a long home run halfway up the stands in right field. And didn't like the way that he styled it around the bases.
He dropped a little Sammy Sosa on him there with the stutter step before stepping on the base. 2 outs. Stephen Drew, the first Red Sox hitter to reach base. A 2-out walk.
That home run and the bat flip might have had something to do with David Price, who drilled Big Papi earlier this season, and they've had the War of the Words this season. They had the Escobar flap also, where the bench is empty.
Bogaerts tried to check his swing and fouls it off. Yeah, the two clubs, the Rays and the Red Sox, they have been at each other's throats for years. Goes back to Pedro Martinez and Don Zimmer. The late Don Zimmer, the coach right here at Fenway Park. Pedro kind of threw him down to the ground, and it's been going on between those two clubs for a long time. That's tipped off the end of the bat. Xander Bogaerts, the third baseman. 1-for-2. Bogaerts mentioned his numbers against the Blue Jays. 14 for 39 coming into this game. That's a .359 average. Good looking player. He's gone through some growing pains this year.
Yeah, and they started defensively. He's committed 15 errors already this year.
There's a ball hit into right. That's going to get down in front of Bautista. Drew will stop at second. Stroman's got a great fastball, but his real forte is being able to throw a combination of breaking balls. He does it very well.
He'll cut the fastball, as you see. He uses that about 16% of the time. His slider is a big, hard breaking pitch that he can get a lot of strikeouts with. He's got a good curveball also. He'll mix in the changeup occasionally, but I love the fastball slider combination that he throws out there. Turning the ball over at times and using the two-seamer.
Jackie Bradley Jr. goes after the first pitch and swings right through it. Lefties have hit just .210 against Marcus Stroman, and that's probably a result of that breaking ball that comes down and in. They swing over the top of it.
Gets right underneath the bat a lot of times against those left-handers.
Strike two with the fastball. There are a bunch of young players in this series that more than likely will play against each other for years. Jackie Bradley Jr. is a very good center fielder. His first full season in the big leagues. Marcus Stroman, of course, now firmly entrenched in the Blue Jays rotation. Catcher Christian Vasquez. He's going to be around for a long time.
He's a keeper. And just watch him operate behind that plate. He's going to be playing a long time. Bogart's the same way over at first base.
Fouled into the upper deck here at Fenway Park. Well, you figure that Aaron Sanchez is going to be around a long time, and Drew Hutchison, so these youngsters are starting up a rivalry that will probably last a number of years. There's a breaking ball, and Bradley strikes out. Third strikeout of the game. The Red Sox leave a pair, but we'll head to the third, and the Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. On the series, the Blue Jays will take on the Baltimore Orioles at Rogers Center Tuesday, August 5th. Game time is at 7:07. Wednesday night, Thursday night, a 3-game series against the front-running Orioles. For tickets, call the Blue Jays at 416-341-1234 or log on to BlueJays.com. The Orioles and the Blue Jays at Rogers Center starts on August 5th. The Blue Jays are 6-7 against the Orioles so far this season.
We have that series against them in August, and then we don't see them again.
Reyes drills it into left field. So leadoff single, and that'll bring Melky Cabrera to the plate. And when you talk about good hitters, you always have to mention Cabrera. Well, Miguel Cabrera, and how about Melky Cabrera? And you look at what they have done, and we have compared their numbers since the All-Star break.
Melky is hitting 100 points higher than the guy who is probably regarded as the best hitter in the American League, Miguel Cabrera. He has also had more RBIs, more extra base hits, and his on-base plus slugging average is much better. It just shows you how hot Melky is. And I was surprised as I looked into the on-base plus slugging for the American League this year. Melky's right there.
Now, Christian Vasquez loves to throw from behind the plate. His throw was high. Reyes has to shorten up his lead now.
Reminds a lot of people of Ivan Rodriguez when he was a young player. He liked to throw the ball around, and he got the reputation that he likes to do that. But to finish on Melky, he is tied for 12th in the American League in on-base plus slugging with David Ortiz.
It's this ball. It should be two. Pedroia to Drew. Back to first. Double play. Taylor made double play. Ball hit right to the second baseman. It's a 4-6-3 DP, and the leadoff single is erased.
Hit it hard, but an easy play for Pedroia and Stephen Drew, the shortstop.
Great shot from above Fenway Park. Another packed house. And it is jammed. You see that highway down to the bottom of your screen. That's the Mass Turnpike just outside Fenway Park. 2 outs. Jose Bautista walked his first time up. Two balls and no strikes to Bautista. Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead. Colby Erasmus with a solo 1-out home run in the second. Bautista wouldn't chase. It's now 3-0. John Gibbons has been the master of the 3-0 green light. Bautista got the green light in New York against Hiroki Kuroda. Breaking ball right in on the corner. He had a 3-run home run in the first inning off Kuroda. Got the Blue Jays off and running.
Ryan Goins got the green light last night, had a 2-run single. It looked like Jose had it right there. Threw him a breaking ball.
Ball 4. Bautista will walk for a second time tonight. So he's at first base. That'll bring Gianna Navarro to the plate with 2 outs. Bautista just hasn't got much to hit lately. He doesn't have the protection of Edwin Encarnacion nor Adam Lind or Brett Lawrie. So he's been patient. He's taken his walks.
Yeah, he's done a good job of taking his walks and then moving along. He's also stolen a big base. That was a huge steal Sunday after he was on first base. So he'll find ways to beat you.
First pitch is downstairs to Navarro. Gianna Navarro has done just exactly what the Blue Jays would hope he would have done, is produce at the plate. He's a switch hitter. He's been fairly consistent putting the bat on the ball, hitting .269.
With all the injuries that the Blue Jays have had to their middle of the order guys, Lind and Encarnacion. We saw Bautista out for a while with the hamstring problem. Leonard stepped in and he's picked up some clutch hits for him. It's been a tough out lately.
Two and 0. There's a strike. It's now 2-1. I mentioned the Blue Jays, and I was looking at the Red Sox Orioles season series. The Blue Jays are 5-5 against the Orioles so far. They have 9 games left with Baltimore.
We get them when we get home, then we play them a couple more times in the month of September, once in Baltimore and once to end the season, a 3-game series to end the baseball season.
2-1 to Navarro. Now it's 3-1. Francisco is on deck. Blue Jays really have to take advantage of the Red Sox in this series. They are flat. Jays have won 4 so far here at Fenway. They've won every game against the Red Sox in their home ballpark. Whoa, Navarro thought it was ball 4. Umpire Tim Woodring said no.
Sinker on the outside part of the plate. I'm with you on that. Red Sox doesn't feel like they're in turmoil right now, right around the trade deadline. Is John Lester leaving? Is John Lackey leaving? Miller? Got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, they certainly don't have that keen focus that we're used to seeing. Full count. Bautista will have a running start at first, but before that, Navarro steps out of the box. Bautista can score from first. It's a spacious outfield, and there are a lot of gaps. There he goes. Ball is hit on the ground to first. Mike Karp has plenty of time. The inning will end. Navarro is 0 for 2 so far. The Blue Jays leave a base runner, but they have a 1-0 lead as we head to the bottom of the third. Start. He last faced Boston on Thursday at Rogers Center, and he has been terrific against the Sox, pitching with a lot of confidence. And if you look at his last start versus Boston, faced 22 batters, gave up 1 hit. That was a leadoff single to Shane Victorino in the 7th. Didn't allow a run, walked 2 and struck out 7. He's on a similar pace tonight.
He had 11 in a row at one time against the Boston Red Sox in that start. His breaking ball was fantastic. He struck out Brock Holt the first 3 times he faced him, all swinging. He gave up that hit to Victorino to lead off the 7th inning, but he was taken out after Mike Napoli hit into a double play. He was sensational. Just 2 walks in 1 hit against the Red Sox in that start, and he's doing it again here tonight.
It'll be the number 9 hitter, Christian Vasquez, the young catcher, leading things on. Stroman delivers a first pitch strike. Vasquez has the Red Sox fans pretty excited about his future. He's got 7 RBIs since he's come up to the big leagues. Pokes that one just over the Red Sox dugout into the seats. Vasquez is from Puerto Rico. He's a good-looking defensive catcher that has a knack for driving in runs. He's just 23 years old. He'll turn 24 next month.
Had a chance to visit with him when the ball club was in Toronto, and is outgoing and very friendly, wants to learn how to catch at the big league level. He's got all the tools in my mind. All you have to do is watch him for a couple of innings behind the plate.
He's very quick, and he's not very big, so obviously he presents a good low target when the pitchers are looking in from the mound. He's 5'9", weighs 195. He's a fire plug of a catcher. He waves at that breaking ball. Another strikeout for Stroman. He's got 4 strikeouts, and for his career, he's off to a great start. You look at the franchise record for lowest ERA in the first 10 starts. Marcus Stroman this season, 2.21 third run average. Kelvin Escobar at 98, 235. Jeff Musselman, 87 and 88. And then Jimmy G, his first year as a starter, 2.63 ERA. You talk about some good young arms at that point. Stroman, the best of the bunch.
And Escobar went on to have a very good career. Jimmy Key, we all know about him, how well he pitched in the championship teams. Jeff Musselman left the Blue Jays and pitched a long time in the big leagues. Marcus Stroman, every time he goes to that mound, you just get the sense and the feeling that he belongs. He's getting better. He's learning how to pitch. And he's making believers out of everybody.
Right back up the middle. Brock Holt has his first hit against Marcus Stroman. And when you look at Stroman's record going back over his last 4 starts, he has really strung together some good outings.
At Oakland, he threw 7 innings. He didn't give up an earned run, had 7 strikeouts in that game. Then LA, not very good, just 3 2/3. But then another 7-inning outing against Texas, no earned runs. And then the Boston game, 7 innings, no earned runs, 7 strikeouts in that game. All told, in those games right there, he only walked 6 batters in his last 4 ball games.
Daniel Nava caught looking at strike 3 his first time up. Two hits now for the Red Sox, just 3 hits for the Blue Jays. Stroman is very quick unloading the ball to the plate, and he is tough to run on. You think the Red Sox might try to start something, but then you have to think about all the strikeouts and swings and misses that Stroman gets. It might be tough.
It's really not a team, the Boston Red Sox, that has a lot of team speed or the ability to steal bases.
Brock Holt has 6 steals and 8 attempts. Bogarts is 7 for 7. Jackie Bradley Jr. is 7 for 7, but they don't have any real burners.
No, they don't have Jacoby Ellsbury, who is a 50 stolen base a season type of guy. They just don't have that right now.
Nava fouls it straight back. Stroman's ahead 1-2. Blue Jays at the start of play tonight, 2.5 games behind the Baltimore Orioles in the American League East. The Yankees have dropped to 4.5 back of first place. The Red Sox are in last place, 10 games under 500.
And all the newspapers, all they're talking about right here in Boston is, what are the Red Sox going to do? Trade deadline is on Thursday. They got a lot of players that other teams would be very interested in having.
Breaking ball. Nava strikes out for a second time. That's 5 strikeouts for Stroman.
First 2 were looking, using his fastball. Now he's starting to work in the breaking ball. He creates a lot of spin and a lot of torque on that breaking ball. That's something I don't think you can teach. I think pitchers either have it or they don't, the ability to spin a breaking ball. And he has it.
Dustin Pedroia grounded out to short his first time up. Holt at first. 2 outs. And it's really surprising. Stroman's not very big. In fact, by his own admission, he's 5'8". doesn't have real big hands. And generally, when you think about guys that throw great breaking balls, they got big, long fingers.
Pedro Martinez.
Real strong hands.
Yeah.
But Stroman has the ability to really put a lot of spin on that breaking ball, and he can manipulate it right at the end. He can cut it. He can make that breaking ball big. He can make it quick. He can do a lot of different things with it. There's a drive. This is trouble. This is going to be off the wall. Brock Holt got a good read. He's coming around third. And Reyes' throw to the plate. Caught. Dustin Pedroia has tied the game at
1. 2 out, so Brock Holt is going to run on the crack of the bat, and that's exactly what he does on that ball that's driven to left field by Dustin Pedroia. He's going to take off as soon as it's hit, and it looked like the Blue Jays caught a break when it bounced right back to Gose. But Holt running with 2 away really scores without a throw to tie this ball game.
So with first base open, John Gibbons not even going to mess with David Ortiz, and you can't blame him. Ortiz has 25 RBIs in the month of July, the most in the big league, so put him on.
Teams do that to Jose Bautista. John Gibbons, this is the right move right here. First base open, don't even give him a chance.
No, it doesn't make any difference who's hitting behind him. If you can put him on first, you're going to put him on. Mike Carp will bat next. Ortiz given the intentional pass. Ball 4. For Pedroia, give you an idea what kind of season it's been for him. That's only his 4th RBI against the Blue Jays. He's just had a down year, and he's been hampered by his hand. He's had thumb surgery last year, and it's just not as strong as he would like it. And he said the only thing that can help is to strengthen it in the offseason. Mike Carp bats with 2 on and 2 outs. Koji Uehara, you mentioned the Red Sox have players that other teams want. He's one of them.
You hear all kind of names the last couple of days since we've been in Boston about the Red Sox doing that.
Broken bat. Reyes is there, and the inning is over. The intentional pass works. Dustin Pedroia has tied it up on a gorgeous evening in Massachusetts. The sun setting down in the west. It's a 1-1.
'14 Honda Civic. Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
One ball game. The hits are even at 3 apiece. Dustin Pedroia with an RBI double off the Green Monster, his 38th RBI of the season, has tied it up at 1. For the Jays, it'll be Francisco, Rasmus, and Kawasaki. Ball and a strike as that one is fouled off. Francisco, last time he saw De La Rosa, went 2 for 2 with a home run. He has had success against the Sox right-hander. Hits this one, and that's going to get through into center field. Leadoff single for Francisco.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Ruby De La Rosa's arm. He's got a good fastball. He just hasn't been able to throw it consistently where he wants to. Look where this one is, up and away. That's right where Juan Francisco likes it. He's got a change up, but he doesn't throw it consistently over for strikes, and a little bit of a breaking ball, making it easier for hitters to square him up. Right now, this is all about a talk. Who's going to take the comebacker to De La Rosa?
Yeah, that was interesting. De La Rosa's the one that initiated the conversation. He called Bogarts, the third baseman, in. They're playing the shift against Rasmus, and we talked about how unusual a shift it is. And now Bogarts is asking the bench, you want me to cover for the bunt? So he's going to inch in toward the grass. Seemed to be a lot of confusion here in this at bat. Rasmus homered last time up. I don't think he's thinking about bunting.
No, not if he is homered already tonight. And that conversation that De La Rosa had about covering, I mean, it's pretty easy who's going to cover a comebacker right here. It's got to be Pedroia, the second baseman.
Rasmus fouls it back. It was interesting how De La Rosa called Bogarts in. He talked with him first, and then he went over to talk to Pedroia. You can never really think with a pitcher. I speak from experience. Sometimes they'll come at you from left field. Ground ball past Bogarts into left field. The shift got him right there. If Bogarts is in his normal position at straightaway shortstop, Rasmus grounds into a double play.
That would have been a tailor-made double play. It would have been right at him at shortstop, his natural position. But because he is in, Colby is able to get the ball by him. That's a liner right by him. Look at how close he is. Not a lot of reaction time when you're this close. And if he's straight away shortstop, that's a double play.
It's a one hopper to the shortstop, and they will turn it easily. And now Munenori Kawasaki with runners at first and second. The Red Sox looking for the bunt. Kawasaki squares and takes it upstairs. Well, the base runners have to be wary of Christian Vasquez. And this is the tough time. If Kawasaki bunts through the pitch, the base runner's first reaction is to take an extra step.
That is the toughest one right there. If you're the runner at second base and a batter bunts through the ball.
Perfect bunt. De La Rosa goes to first in time for the out. Boy, Kawasaki can really bunt. He takes a lot of pride in his ability to execute fundamentally, and he hit that right off the end of the bat and really killed it on the grass just in front of home.
You know, Blue Jays making some moves to their roster, and everybody's questioning, well, who's the player that's got to be sent out? And you hear Kawasaki's name, but he does things every night to help you win ball games. Something as simple as a sacrifice bunt right there helps. He'll play different positions for you. He can pinch hit. He can pinch run. He slaps the ball the other way. He plays good fundamental baseball, and that was perfectly executed right there.
You couldn't have done it any better, and you made the pitcher field it. So he came off the mound now with runners at second and third. That'll force the Red Sox infield in once again. Ryan Goins takes a strike. Goins has singled already tonight. His single in the second came on an 0-2 pitch. They appeal down to Andy Fletcher at third, and he's called for the swing.
How do you swing when you're trying to get out of the way? I don't understand that one.
I want to see this again.
Does he make an attempt? That's not a swing.
Not even close.
Look at that.
Not even close. The barrel never got over the plate, let alone past the plate. And he was bailing out. But now he's got a battle. He's got an 0-2 count. Another breaking ball in the dirt. It's a 1-1 game. Blue Jays scored in the second. The Red Sox scored in the bottom of the third.
Ground ball to the infield. I'm sure the runners are being told to hold up. Right now, you got a couple of runners in scoring position, and the lead runner, Juan Francisco, doesn't have the great speed, so I'm sure they're going to play it through the infield on the ground.
Another pitch way inside. 2-2.
Boy, big difference of 3-1 to 2-2 right here on that check swing. If he gets the call, he's hitting 3-1 against De La Rosa as opposed to 2-2.
De La Rosa and Vasquez, a little bit of trouble getting their heads together and agreeing on a pitch here. Vasquez catching in his 10th big league game. Changeup and a good one. 2 down. Let's check it with Jamie Campbell. Thank you, Jamie. That's Nick Martinez on the mound for Texas. Brandon McCarthy will pitch for the Yankees tonight. The Yankees are 4.5 games out of first place, 2 games behind the Blue Jays. Anthony Gose trying to deliver with 2 outs here. John Gibbons, the manager of the Blue Jays, will join us from the dugout when we come back after this half inning. Interesting developments with the Blue Jays of late. New ball player in Danny Valencia with him. We'll check in with Gibby from the dugout in the next half inning. Inside. De La Rosa very animated after that pitch was called a ball. Umpires will make note of that.
Yeah, taking off the mound, going all the way back on the grass. And another ball.
Now it's 3-1. Reyes is on deck.
Tell you what, they're making him work. It's a 4th inning. This is going to be his 72nd pitch already in this ball game.
Yeah, we had talked about the Blue Jays doing a very good job of working over the starters lately. 3-1 hit to right. That's going to get down for a hit. Francisco's in to score. Rasmus right behind him. Gose is hustling into second. A big 2-out double for Anthony Gose. He drives in a pair, and the Blue Jays have the lead.
He has been doing things, making contributions to this team, if it's with his glove, his legs, his arm, and now his bat. This ball 3-1, and he's geared for it. Look how smooth he is, rounding that bag and hustling into second base for a big 2-out double. Got himself into a fastball count, got the 3-1 fastball and didn't miss it. Clutch.
Big hit. RBIs number 7 and 8. His 5th double of the season. Reyes takes a strike. Blue Jays lead it 3-1. Back-to-back singles to start the inning by Francisco and Rasmus. A perfect sac bunt by Kawasaki. And after the strikeout of Goins, Anthony Gose delivers a 2-run double. Inside again. The Red Sox used 4 relievers in last night's game. Blue Jays did a good job of getting to play Buchholz, and then they got deep into that bullpen.
Yeah, in the game before last night's, they used 5 relievers in that ball game. They're making De La Rosa work here tonight.
There's a drive deep to center. Bradley back. He gets to the track and makes the catch. Reyes hit it hard, but Bradley Jr. ran it down in center. Anthony Gose with a 2-run, 2-out double has given the Blue Jays a 3-1 lead. With all those regulars out.
Yeah, Buck. Yeah, we really have. We've been playing some real good baseball since we came out of the All-Star break, and the guys at the bottom of the lineup, the guys you don't necessarily expect to do things, have been clutch for us. They're primarily defensive type players, and you hope they hit. And but they've been pitching some big ones. Like Kawasaki, like you said, Goins and Gose and those guys. Perfect example last inning. Top of the inning. Excuse me. That the big hit by 2-out hit by Gose right there. So. But, the bottom line, we're playing good baseball. And, we got a good feeling back in the dugout. We went a couple weeks where it didn't feel so good right before the All-Star break. But there's a little something different in the dugout lately.
Gibby, talk a little bit about what Marcus Stroman has meant to your starting rotation.
Oh, Tabby, I tell you, he's been huge. And can't say that he came out of nowhere, but we really didn't know what to expect when we put him in the rotation. The big debate was, is he a reliever, is he a starter? But I tell you, since he stepped in that rotation, he's taken and run with it, and he's really been dominating what he's been against some pretty good teams. And he's got that strikeout ability, so if he gets in a little trouble, that's always helpful.
Gibby, thanks for your time.
Okay, guys.
Marcus Stroman, he has given the Blue Jays some depth. Anthony Gose starting to play more and starting to reward his manager for the confidence. Stephen Drew fouls it out of play. It's 0-2. But you know what, Pat? When you look at this team, and everybody said, well, you know, you don't have those guys. We got to get those guys back. Well, the guys that are here are doing a pretty good job. And you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, they're playing in a pennant race. And a lot of these guys have never experienced what it means to play in a pennant race. Melky Cabrera has, of course. He came up with the Yankees. But when you get into a situation where all of a sudden you're looking out there in left field and the standings have you in second place, this is for real. Off-speed pitch is popped in the air. Reyes on the outfield grass. One down. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Hisashi Iwakuma, 2 hits over 4 innings. He has 4 strikeouts. He's up against Trevor Bauer, who's been tagged for 4 runs on 7 hits. Blue Jays will see the Seattle Mariners on their next road trip. First time they go out to Seattle this season.
How about the schedule makers?
I was just thinking the same thing.
I know, because we think the same. You mentioned the Seattle trip, but the last week of the season for the Blue Jays, they're at home. 4 with Seattle, 3 with the Baltimore Orioles.
Pretty good. Amazing how it works out.
Yeah.
I was talking about the geography of the next road trip. Seattle, Chicago, Milwaukee. They're all within the 2 or 3 hour range in each direction.
In each direction.
Xander Bogaerts had a single to right his first time up. He's now got a 2-2 count. Look out. That is a flying bat all the way into the seats. And Bogaerts strikes out, and that fan right there, he has gotten his money's worth tonight.
Yeah, and Bogaerts doesn't want that bat back. Struck out on another breaking ball from Marcus Stroman.
Look at that. He got the bat. He still has his ticket, and he never spilled his beer. That bat really helicopters into the seats, and the lucky fan got a souvenir.
Guy's having a good night. I want to finish up with what John Gibbons was saying about the feeling in the dugout. I thought was the biggest sentence he said when we were talking to him. We got that feeling back in that dugout. It was gone right before the All-Star break, but it's back.
Boy, you were right about that. It was gone before the All-Star break. The Blue Jays went 2-8 on their 10-game trip. Oakland, Anaheim, Tampa Bay. And it was not a good feeling. And, you know, it was a distracted clubhouse. You know, guys had a lot of things going on. Jose Bautista was burdened with trying to pick a home run hitting team for the All-Star game. There's a fly ball, and this is trouble. Bautista and Gose runs it down. No trouble at all. Anthony Gose has great speed in center. Blue Jays have a 3-1 lead. Now it's time for a Follow games pitch by pitch and enjoy in-game video highlights. The app is available on the iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, Android, and BlackBerry. Season-long subscription packages are available. Visit BlueJays.com today for more details. Melky Cabrera will lead things up. We're in the 5th inning. Buck and Pat put us on TV.
Those are the boys that were at the Honda Super Camps in Toronto. They told me they were going to be here today.
That's awesome. Cabrera slops it to third. He is thrown out. The Honda Super Camps go all across Canada, and a lot of fans enjoy the camps, and then they have made a side trip to Fenway Park.
They were at Rogers Center. They said, we're going to be at the ballpark on Tuesday. We're going to be out in right field. And I said, well, make a sign. We'll try and get you on television. Well, boys, there you go.
Good job. Well, there are a lot of Blue Jay fans that travel well, and they travel around the country, see the Blue Jays play. That trip to Seattle is always a treat, and for the players that have never experienced Blue Jays playing in Seattle, it's a special feeling. You are playing on the road, and it feels like a home game.
Sea of blue, that's what I call it, at Safeco Field. They are everywhere in their jerseys.
Jose Bautista, a pair of walks so far tonight. Jose, coming into this game, carries a .364 average against the Red Sox this season. 2 more walks tonight. He has walked 7 times against the Bo Sox.
Boy, he has been so careful with him. And Jose's been very patient with him. I think he senses that De La Rosa doesn't want to have anything to do with him, and he's not going to bite on that breaking ball.
Borderline pitch. He'll take it for a strike. It's now a full count. Bautista has 18 career home runs here at Fenway Park. This is his 43rd career game. That is popped down the right side. Mike Carp over near the seats. It's way back out of play. Run cut. Jose Bautista, of course, plays the Red Sox a lot because they're both in the American League East, but he loves hitting against the Red Sox. He has 28 career home runs against Boston, 21 against the Yankees, 21 against the Rays. And he's got a base hit. Boy, what a good piece of hitting that was. With 2 strikes, he didn't get fooled on that breaking ball. Just kept his hands back and stroked it into center.
And watch how he stays on top of that ball. Also a high slider. And you got to get your hands above the ball. You got to keep it above the ball. Don't want to be cutting your swing off right there. You want to drive right through that high breaking ball. Good approach and a good finish. His swing is perfect for this ballpark here. It's a lot of high fly balls. And their home runs here to left field.
That'll push his career average at Fenway Park to 300. 2 walks and a single. John Navarro takes the pitch upstairs. Blue Jays catcher has gone 0 for 2. Justin Vasquez out to talk to the right-hander. A couple of youngsters getting their first regular work in the big leagues. De La Rosa worked last year in 11 games as a relief pitcher over 3 different stints with the ball club.
Yeah, he was coming back from Tommy John surgery after he came over from the Dodgers. He's going to have to trust his fastball, I think, a little bit more. That might have been the message that the young catcher went out there and said, hey, you can't keep falling behind these guys. You can't nibble. His fastball is 96, 97 mile an hour with movement. He should aim for right down the middle of the plate.
Yeah, it's just much too good a fastball to discount it. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Navarro.
You know, when he starts throwing that fastball with regularity for more strikes, it's just going to make his changeup that much better. He's had a good changeup tonight.
Navarro checked his swing. This time Andy Fletcher down at third said no swing on the appeal. There goes Bautista. The ball is fouled back. Bautista was off on the full count pitch, even though there's just 1 out.
You know, if he doesn't trust his fastball, De La Rosa, and he doesn't throw it for more strikes, he is not going to be in this game much longer. He is up over 90 pitches already. Changeup.
There goes Bautista. The ball is hit in the air to center. Bautista headed back to first as Jackie Bradley Jr. makes the catch. 2 down. So Juan Francisco will step to the plate. He has a single. He scored a run in the 4th. He and Rasmus, with back-to-back singles to start the 4th, scored on the Anthony Goes 2-run, 2-out double.
Here's a perfect time right now, I think, to sit fastball first pitch. See if you can knock one out of the ballpark.
He got his first pitch fastball, hits it high and deep to left. That's going to be off the wall. Bautista is going to be stopped at third as Francisco was looking for that first pitch fastball, and he got it and hits it off the green monster.
Oh, he came so close to driving it out of the ballpark. He's got great power the other way. He gets his fastball, and it's just a long fly ball to left field. Just not enough carry. Nava does a good job of playing it off the wall, not getting too close to the ball so it doesn't bounce over his head, and Blue Jays have to hold up Bautista.
Well, Juan Nieves, the pitching coach for the Red Sox, quickly came out of the dugout, and he's out on the mound. And they have an option here. Colby Rasmus has homered and singled. He's 2 for 2, and they got a base open. I would be surprised if they pitched to Rasmus. When you have a young pitcher on the mound, I don't think you can tell him, be careful with this guy, pitch around him. If you don't want to pitch to him to get him out, put him on.
Yeah, he's liable to make a mistake. And they're going to pitch to him.
Boy, they sure are. I think this is a mistake. Colby's 2 for 2 with a home run. I think it's very difficult to ask a young pitcher to pitch carefully to a guy because he doesn't have command. We've talked about it all night long. You make a mistake to Rasmus, and the Blue Jays are liable to take a big lead. 5 for 12 with a homer in his last 4 games. Boy, he is sizing him up, isn't he?
Yep, he's using his changeup. I don't know if he wants to throw him a fastball. Maybe that was the message. Okay, pitch to him, but don't throw him a fastball.
Got a pretty good pitch to hit right there. Right down the middle. Now that might give Ruby De La Rosa a false sense of security. Okay, now I got him.
He's looking breaking ball. I'm going to try and slip one by him.
There's a high fly ball down the right side. Pedroia out. Brock Holt over, but it's out of play. The Red Sox have played a dramatic shift on Rasmus all night long, and with that, the shortstop now is actually the third baseman. And look where he is, and look where Bautista is.
He could almost go 3/4 of the way to home plate. There is absolutely no one around Jose Bautista.
You know what? He could come set and break for home with the pitcher looking in for a sign and probably score. Because if De La Rosa doesn't walk, he's still got to get the ball to the catcher.
I mean, he could take 3 or 4 or 5 more steps from where he is.
Inside. Yeah, that's really interesting. And
he could come down and fake break when De La Rosa looks at him, and maybe he flinches.
Well, I mean, look at where Bogaerts is. Bogaerts couldn't get over there to play behind Bautista. Jose could take 4 or 5 strides toward home and still get back to third. High deep drive to right down near the pesky pole. But that's a foul ball. He gave it a ride. Boy, you can hook it around that pesky pole. It's just about 300 feet right to that pole before the fence shoots straight out away from home plate.
There it is down the line, hooking. Yeah, you can hook it around that pole. Yeah, that one's foul.
Another foul ball. Full count, 2 outs. Christian Vasquez, the young catcher, out to talk to his pitcher. Rasmus perfect tonight, 2 for 2. He had the 1-out home run in the second. He singled and scored in the fourth. He scored a pair, driven in a run. There's a fly ball into center. Should be an easy play for the center fielder. Jackie Bradley Jr. makes the catch. The Blue Jays leave a pair. We're headed to the bottom of the 5th. The Jays are up 3-1.
Thanks a lot, Buck, and we are joined by Earl Stroman, Marcus's father. And first of all, Earl, what is it like for you to watch your son pitch in the big leagues right now? How proud are you of what he's been able to do?
Oh, I'm excited. You can't ask for anything more. I didn't expect that. The only thing I wanted him to be able to do is go to college. And he did that. This is just icing on the cake. So.
And do you get nervous? Do you get angry when he gives up a run? Do you get overexcited when he gets a strikeout?
No, I try to stay even keel. I'm nervous through the whole game, but I got to learn how to watch a game and relax. But he's my son, so you're always going to feel for your own. So just part of the game.
One thing that we've noticed about Marcus is he has that bulldog attitude. He loves pressure. He doesn't seem to be fazed by who he's facing. Is that something he learned from you?
Yeah, when he was young, he's always had that attitude. We always put him in tough situations, and as you listen to him, he'll tell you I was very hard on him. Hey, but it paid off. The kid's a great kid. You know.
You become more of a baseball fan over the years?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah. I had to learn the game. I really didn't know the game. I knew how to recruit, but I had to learn how to play the game.
Well, your son is doing awfully well. You should be awfully proud.
I am. I'm getting lucky. Thank you very much. Yeah, I am.
Great job, Barry, is Earl Stroman and Barry Davis discussing Marcus Stroman. And Marcus Stroman and Earl, they're from Medford, New York, which is way out on Long Island. And Earl came up for this game tonight. They drove to the end of Long Island, took a ferry, and came across to Connecticut, and then drove up here. Much easier than going all the way back in through Manhattan and the Bronx and coming up that way. So it was a short trip across the ferry, across Long Island Sound. But I got a chance. You talked to Earl tonight as well. And Earl was very excited, of course, to see his son pitch here at Fenway. And he also talked about the relationship that Marcus and Aaron Sanchez have developed since their time in the minor leagues.
He was down on the field during batting practice today, and tell you what, I don't know how he does it. He says he's nervous during the game. I can see why. I mean, you watched your son play. I watched my sons play. You know, I'm cheering for him, and I want him to do well. This guy's in the big league. He's pitching against the Red Sox at Fenway Park. How can he not be nervous?
Yeah, and you certainly want your children to succeed at whatever they do. That's off the end of the bat. Easy play for Stroman. One down.
The 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Beautiful aerial shot to Fenway Park. Blue Jays lead it 3-1. Brock Holt singled and scored his last time. The Blue Jays have won all 4 games they've played here at Fenway Park this season. It has been quite a turnaround season for them. The season record 8-3 against the Red Sox. John Gibbons very pleased with the way his troops have responded after the All-Star break. In our interview with Gibbons during this ballgame, he talked about the different energy in the clubhouse after the All-Star break. Of course, you get a couple of new players. Aaron Sanchez in the bullpen, that brings you some energy. Now you've got Danny Valencia, the newest Blue Jay, who joined the ball club this afternoon. Was here for the pregame drills, the batting practice, and he's on the bench tonight available.
You win a few ball games, and you win some tough ball games on the road like the Jays have done in New York. I'll tell you, it's a different vibe that you have down in that dugout.
Since Ryan Goins has come back from AAA Buffalo, the club has gone 6-1. Everybody making a contribution, and you know the fans are clamoring for a star-studded deal. Chances are that's not going to happen. Juan Francisco steps on the bag. 2 ground ball outs here in the 5th. Sanchez has already won a game. He's been in 2 ball games working in relief. And he won his first major league game at Yankee Stadium, working as a reliever.
Yeah, that's where he will stay according to the Blue Jays, for the rest of this season, pitching out of the bullpen, an inning here, 2 innings there, as he is on a pitch limit, pitching innings limit.
Yeah, you just wonder if it's one of those kind of limits where you get to the end of the season, they decide, well, that's not enough innings.
We have a chance to win.
You could probably use a couple more innings. Well, you mentioned the last homestand of the season, Seattle and Baltimore, 2 teams as we speak that the Blue Jays are in contention with for a postseason berth. There's a base hit to left field for Daniel Nava. It comes with 2 outs. Nava had struck out twice before that single. Dustin Pedroia has driven in the only Red Sox run. It came on a double in the 3rd. He drove home Brock Holt on first base. He's late on that fastball.
You never know where rallies might come from. He gets the first 2 batters here and then a single. Pedroia gets on, and then you got to face Big Papi. So this is a big at bat right here.
They were able to walk Ortiz last time up as Pedroia doubled ahead of him. They had first base open.
They do such a good job, the Red Sox, at learning something every time they go up there against a certain pitcher. I think they have an idea of how Marcus is going to pitch to him.
Well, Pedroia got jammed and hit that off his foot. That happened to Pedroia a couple of years ago during interleague play. He fouled the ball off his foot and broke a bone in his foot, and he missed a lot of time.
That looked like a 2-seamer, and it got right off the instep.
You can see he's got that shin guard pad on top of his instep. It's become part of his uniform after breaking that foot. Two balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Nava at first with a 2-out single. There's a base hit through the right side. Boy, that scenario you talked about has played itself out. Back-to-back 2-out hits, and that'll bring David Ortiz to the plate.
Yeah, from nowhere. 2 quick outs and then a single. And now how about this base hit by Pedroia? Takes it the other way, finds the hole on the right side to keep the inning alive.
Okay, now if you're John Gibbons with Pete Walker out to the mound, he's talking about this situation. Obviously, you have a base open, but it happens to be third base. And if you would walk Ortiz to load the bases, you'd put Pedroia at second. He would represent the tying run. A bold move, to be sure.
Yeah. So you have to figure out what you want to do. I think he's going to pitch to him.
Ortiz walked intentionally his last time up. He leads the majors with 25 RBIs since the start of July. First pitch off the plate outside. 2 outs. Changeup missed downstairs. Ortiz just missed a home run in his first at bat. Hit it right to the fence in right field. Bautista right up against the fence made the catch. Ground ball. Goins in right field. Quickly to first, and Stroman gets out of it. They stayed with the fastball and get Ortiz. The Red Sox strand a pair. The Blue Jays in the 6th with a 3-1 lead will send Kawasaki to .ca now has Fangraphs articles. For years, Fangraphs has been a leader in baseball analytics. Now you can catch up to Fangraphs with Sportsnet.ca. Fangraphs suggests why the Dodgers don't need another ace. Well, you can only have 4 aces in a deck, and if you got another ace, that would be too many, obviously. John Lester, David Price, they're going to add another ace. I guess you could say, well, they have 3 aces now.
The Dodgers, Kershaw, Greinke, Ryu, Beckett.
That's too many.
That's too many.
That's illegal. Munenori Kawasaki trying to get things going.
I bet you they trade for one. I bet you they trade for Cole Hamels.
Yeah, Cole Hamels to me makes a lot of sense for the Dodgers. I think his arsenal of pitches is quite complementary to the rest of the staff. Kawasaki hits it on the ground through the middle for a leadoff single. Leadoff man's aboard. Let's check in with Jamie Campbell. Thank you, Jamie. The Orioles have a lot of guys that are very focused on getting back to the postseason. They got a tough lineup, and Nick Markakis tonight, 1 for 3 with that 3-run homer. Manny Machado has an RBI tonight. Adam Jones has hit his 20th home run, a first-inning home run off Weaver.
How about the rumors here about John Lester going to Baltimore?
I can't see that happening.
Me either.
No, you'd be wearing John Lester for the rest of your life. John Lester's one of a handful of aces in my mind. Who's better than John Lester? Clayton Kershaw?
Kershaw, Price, Lester. I'm putting them all, King Felix, all in the same category.
Wainwright?
Yes.
Same time. You know, there's a handful of aces. You have to even admit that the great Justin Verlander has slipped a notch this year.
Yes.
But who are you going to replace Lester with? At what cost? I think that's the same argument the Blue Jays have to ask themselves. Who's going to replace Melky Cabrera And are we going to find a player that's as consistent? And at what price? Well, first of all, there's nobody like Melky Cabrera available. Switch hitting outfielder, 30 years old, hitting 300, plays every day, doesn't say a peep, and likes Toronto.
And just comes and plays.
Yeah.
That would be a good phone call to make right now to try and tie him up before he becomes a free agent.
Ryan Goins fouls it back. It's a ball and 2 strikes.
But on the John Lester front, if you determine that you cannot sign him as a free agent when the season's over, don't you have to trade him to get something for him?
You make him an offer, qualifying offer at the end of the season, he would naturally turn it down. And then all you're going to get is a draft pick.
Whit-de-do.
I think they're going to trade him.
I mean, it makes sense if you determine you can't sign him, that you're not going to be willing to pay that money.
Bouncing ball, Pedroia quickly to second for 1. They're not going to get Goins. Kawasaki is out on the 4-6 Forsythe. John Lester is a horse, and he has had a great season. He's getting stronger as the season's gone on. He's pitching with the distraction of a disappointing season, and he's had a phenomenal year, plus the distraction of being a free agent at the end of the year.
That hasn't been a distraction to him. He holds all the cards right now. And if he goes to the Red Sox and say, if you offer me $140 million for 7 years, which I don't think the Red Sox would do.
Anthony Ghost drops down a bunt. De La Rosa makes a nice play just in time to get Anthony. 2 down, man at second. Let's check back in with Jamie Campbell. Aaron Seavey with RBIs number 16 and 17 for the season. Brandon McCarthy, 3 runs so far in just 2 2/3. Texas playing a little bit of a spoiler role. They finally got Jim Aducci back in the DH spot. He'd been out with a broken pinky. Ghost not credited with a sacrifice bunt as he was attempting to bunt for a base hit. He's out 1-3 on the play, and Bowens moves to second.
But one more time to finish that Lester thought. Seattle looks like a good play for him. If he went there, stick him between King Felix and Iwakuma, Seattle's got a good chance of going deep in the playoffs.
Plus, if I'm Seattle, I play the hometown card. Bouncing ball, Pedroia waits on it in between hop, and the inning is over. Blue Jays get a leadoff single, can't do anything with it. We'll go to the bottom of the 6th. The Jays and Marcus Stroman up by 2. Jays baseball partnership and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Rogers Blue Jays baseball partnership. Beautiful night in Boston. And some great aerial shots all night long. This full house crowd, and the Blue Jays have a 3-1 lead. Once again, the Blue Jays have 9 hits tonight against Boston. They had 14 hits last night, and they have pounded the baseball against Boston all season long.
They've also left a runner on in every inning too, so they've had other chances against Ruby De La Rosa.
Mike Carp playing at first base tonight. That, I guess, was a ball. Ball 1 to Mike Carp. Bouncing ball. Goins right at the edge of the grass. 1 down. Ryan Goins is a very valuable defender. Not only because of what he does at second, but the fact is he can back up Jose Reyes and do it very well. He might have more range than Reyes at shortstop, and his arm is nearly as strong as Jose's.
Hey, we saw in last night's ball game when Jose left the game, Ryan went over to play shortstop and threw out Victorino on a beautiful play where he went to his right, gloved it, threw it all in one motion. Very strong throw across the infield.
Stephen Drew, the shortstop. The Red Sox have 1 run on 5 hits. That's the old frustrated look of this guy doesn't need any help.
He's thrown 2 beautiful pitches to him right on the corner. Look at that. 1 and 2.
Breaking ball. That's a fair ball. Francisco beats Drew to the bag. Don't run over Marcus, Juan. We need him.
Don't step on him either. It looked like he was going to flip it. Then he said at the last second, I got it. And runs into a starting pitcher.
That's not a fair matchup right there, Francisco and Stroman. That's like the scat back running into the middle linebacker.
Yeah, Francisco has no chance.
2 down now. Xander Bogaerts, the third baseman. Stroman up over 100 pitches. The Blue Jays consistently have used that as their barometer for getting pitchers out of a game. Dustin McGowan is throwing for the Blue Jays in their pen in right field. Appears to be ready. Strike 3 call. Well, if that's it, what a way to say goodnight to the Red Sox. His 7th strikeout of the night retires Bogart to end the 6th. $24.99 when you upgrade or switch to select new Android phones on a 2-year Share Everything plan. So check it out today. Stop by Rogers and check out the Sony Smart Band. Well, Blue Jay fans are having a good trip to Fenway so far. They have seen Ruby De La Rosa leave the ball game after 6 innings. Edward Mujica will take over. Mujica worked in the game last night through 15 pitches in a clean inning of work in the ninth.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, ninth inning last night versus the Blue Jays. There are his numbers. They've hit him well this year. He was a closer last year, and he's put into the bullpen right now. He is the 4th right-hander for John Farrell in his bullpen.
Blue Jays have faced Mujica 3 times before tonight this season. He's worked a total of 3 2/3 innings, and they have hit a couple of home runs off of him. Melky Cabrera's 0 for 3 tonight. This ball is going to slice into the seats out of play. Fenway Park, always a great destination for baseball fans, and they come from all corners of the world. He's been here since 1912, and that gentleman there got himself a souvenir. Looks like he wants to give it away and nobody will take it. Here, you can have this baseball. Okay, I'll take it. Thanks a lot. Pretty special gift, I think. Oh, what a line drive that is. Melky Cabrera breaks the over with a leadoff single here in the 7th.
You've heard that term in baseball before, chuck and duck. Well, he chucks it, and he better duck out of the way or he's going to get hit with that line drive by Melky Cabrera. Looked like a splitter right back through the middle.
Well, he swiped at it, but it was past him before he got the glove up. Jose Bautista's had a perfect night, 2 walks and a single. Two and 0. He just won't chase.
No. You see him track that ball all the way to the catcher? A la Pete Rose. Pete Rose used to watch that ball all the way into the catcher's mitt. Jose did the same thing there. Same way.
Young Christian Vasquez has a habit of jerking that ball back toward the strike zone, and I think he's going to be taught the less movement you have, the more effective it is. The umpires see that movement, and that's a red flag to them. Bautista swinging on the 3-0 pitch.
Watch, this is what you were just talking about. Watch when he catches it and tries to pull it back in. Right there, an umpire, you can see him staring right down at that glove saying, no, that's not going to work. And they were asking him from the bench, was that a strike? And he was saying, no, it wasn't.
That pitch is hit high in the air behind the Blue Jays dugout.
You'd like to see him be a little bit more quiet back there.
Yeah, you just want to receive the ball where it is. And, you know, they talk about framing pitches and all that. I think it's a misnomer. I don't think you frame pitches. I just think you receive pitches quietly. I think you do that, and it's more of a positive message to an umpire. There goes the runner. Bautista drives it to right. Cabrera throws on the brakes, and he'll go back to first. Ruby De La Rosa, back-to-back starts against the Blue Jays, and he hasn't fared so well. Better tonight than his previous start. He goes 6 innings, tagged for 9 hits, charged with 3 earned runs and a couple of walks, just 1 strikeout. He threw 112 pitches again. The Blue Jays hitters with a good approach tonight, elevating that pitch count early.
Did not have a 1, 2, 3 inning the whole night. They put pressure on him. Again, they've left the runner on in every inning. First 6 innings of this ballgame, they've had chances against De La Rosa. And now a chance against Mujica. And this is going to be interesting if Navarro gets on right here, because you might see some wheels turning right here. John Farrell's got a lefty warming up, and the Blue Jays have a couple of left-handers coming up in the lineup. This is where you might see the right-handers try and do something.
There's Craig Breslow, one of 3 left-handers the Red Sox have in their bullpen. Breslow pitched in the game last night, threw just 8 pitches. But that's a good point. And with John Lester scheduled to start tomorrow, that might play right into the Blue Jays' hand to get maybe Reimold into the game, maybe Danny Valencia. John Farrell, of course, is thinking about this game tonight. Now to keep the Blue Jays within striking distance.
Well, they have options now off the bench. If they bring in a left-hander, remember in New York, they bring a left-hander in. There's nobody to counteract the move sitting on the bench for the Blue Jays.
Yeah. And obviously, when you have balance on your bench, it really puts pressure on the manager and the pitching coach as to your next move. Line right to Mike Clark. John Farrell won't have to think about his next move, at least for another half inning. Blue Jays are done in the top of the 7th. Jackie Bradley Jr. will start things off when we come back. Blue Jays won a lapper last night in the opener, 14-1. They're playing another very good ball game tonight and getting a strong pitching performance from young Marcus Stroman. Stroman is pitching into the 7th once again. 6 innings, 5 hits, just a single earned run allowed. He walked 2 and struck out 7. He had 2 walks and 7 strikeouts in 7 innings last time out against the Red Sox.
Just 1 hit. I imagine he's going to be on a very short leash here to start the 7th inning.
It'll be 8-9-1 for Boston. Jackie Bradley Jr. Big cut and swings right through it. Interesting move by John Gibbons, and I applaud it. You got a cornerstone of your rotation on the mound. They send him back for the 7th. You're sending a message, hey, you're going to be one of the big guys, and I want to see what you can do in the 7th inning.
After you've thrown over 100 pitches. Wow.
How about that?
That was quick.
That's a statement. 3-pitch strikeout here in the 7th. Strikeout number 8.
He's used the fastball very effectively, especially when he got the 2 strikes. It's the first batter of the game. Right down Broadway for his first strikeout. Second batter of the game. Right down the middle again with the fastball. He's got him looking. He's got him swinging. Started incorporating the breaking ball just a little bit more. This is a lot like his last start against the Boston Red Sox. 7 innings and 7 strikeouts.
I think the pitch count is the most overrated thing in baseball. If it were that good, we wouldn't have as many Tommy John surgeries as we've had the last few years.
That's one. What's 1A? The radar gun?
Yeah.
Is that the second thing?
Yeah. I'd get rid of them both. Ball on a strike. Number 9 hitter Christian Vasquez. Marcus Stroman is learning how to pitch when he's a little bit fatigued. And he likes it. 2 quick outs here in the 7th.
Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't miss this action-packed epic space adventure from the studio that brought you the Avengers, in theaters in 3D and IMAX 3D Friday.
2 outs. Leadoff man Brock Holt has gone 1 for 3 tonight. Holt scored the only Red Sox run. He came home on Dustin Pedroia's green monster double in the 3rd.
But remember, we were talking about this before the game, that Blue Jays only have 6 relievers tonight. 4 right-handers and 3 left-handers. So maybe they're pushing the starter the right thing.
Brock Holt cuts it down the left field line. He's headed for second base. Melky Cabrera had a little trouble digging it out. It was going to be a double, even if it was played cleanly down there in left. So Holt's aboard. That's his 20th double of the season.
Another multi-hit game for Holt. And since they put him in the lineup back in May, he's had the most hits. This time inside out down the left field line. Multi-hit game for Holt.
Hit number 6 for the Red Sox. Daniel Nava singled his last time up. Everybody to the top step in the Blue Jays dugout now. Bottom of the 7th inning. That should do it. Fly ball to center. Marcus Stroman, another strong 7-inning performance. He walks off the mound with a 3-1 lead. that he's a little more relaxed after Marcus got through that 7th inning, and Marcus very pumped up after getting through the 7th inning. Did a terrific job of pitching around that 2-out double. He got Daniel Nava to fly out to end the inning.
He looks calm now.
A little more relaxed now. He's probably relaxed because he assumes that Marcus is out of the ballgame. And he has left the game after 7 strong innings. He's allowed 1 run on 6 hits in 7 innings here at Fenway. New pitcher into the ballgame for the Red Sox is also the much talked about Andrew Miller. He is really being talked about as far as a trade possibility before the trade deadline on Thursday.
Any team would love to have this left-handed arm coming out of their bullpen. It's tall and rangy. Look at those numbers. Righties 188, left-handers 155, a whip under 1, and he's averaging 14 strikeouts per inning. Also leads the team in holds with 13.
How do you think he would look back in a Tiger uniform? Danny Valencia will get his first at bat in a Blue Jays uniform. He is batting for Juan Francisco. Goes after the first pitch and hits it high in the air into center. Valencia retired on 1 pitch. Valencia has a .333 career average against left-handed pitchers. He's got some power. Tomorrow's starter for the Red Sox is scheduled to be John Lester, and you would assume that Valencia will be in the lineup. So he gets his Blue Jays at bat out of the way. Had a nice cut.
I wonder if he has a first baseman's glove.
Well, I would be surprised if he did, because he's never played first base.
I was talking to him before the game. He said, I can handle first base. I played there a little bit in college, so I can play there. And he pinch hit for Juan Francisco, who was playing first base tonight.
You would assume that he's going to take a defensive position, not wanting to use an extra player. For instance, Dan Johnson going to play first. Colby Rasmus has had a good night at the plate. Colby has gone 2 for 3 with a home run. He put the Blue Jays on the board in the 2nd with a 1-out homer. And he singled and scored in the 4th. Boy, you hang out over there trying to guard against that nasty breaking ball of Andrew Miller, and then he loses a fastball inside.
And that's not going to make you feel good right there. Colby does the right thing, ducks out of the way of that high hitter. He throws up in the upper 90s with a wicked breaking ball.
And there's that breaking ball. 2 outs. Now it's time for the drive of the game. It's brought to you by the 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Colby Rasmus gets a fastball to his liking that is down, and we've seen this before in the past. Drills this one to center field. Home run number 14 for Rasmus. His first time up. Got the Blue Jays on the board early tonight.
Steve Tollison batting for Munenori Kawasaki. Tollison came on as a pinch hitter in last night's game. He went 0 for 2. Taking over for Jose Reyes in that leadoff spot. Tollison's done a nice job coming off the bench for John Gibbons. Be interesting to see how Gibbons sets up his lineup tomorrow night with John Lester, the scheduled starter for Boston. Just makes you wonder if Lester's going to make that start. If indeed the Red Sox are planning on trading him, I don't think they can start him.
No.
And risk the possibility of an injury. Ground ball hit to short. Stephen Drew quickly to first, just in time. Andrew Miller, 3 up, 3 down in the 8th. We go to the bottom of the 8th. It's time now for a Blue Jays Central update. Here's Jamie Campbell and Greg Zorn. Only the notorious get in. Enter for your chance at SleemanSpeakeasy.ca.
Play of the game tonight didn't happen on the field. It happened after Milky Cabrera came off the field and gave a baseball to a fan, and that's excitement right there, huh? I came to the game and I got a baseball from Milky Cabrera. I'm going to get rid of my Boston Red Sox hat and become a Blue Jay fan.
I love the Blue Jays. Boy, I tell you what, how much joy can one baseball give a young fan? Good job by Melky Cabrera. New pitcher into the ball game. Aaron Sanchez will make his 3rd big league appearance in relief of his buddy Marcus Stroman.
Just pitched a couple of days ago when he got his first big league win against the New York Yankees. Shows good fastball, good breaking ball, and shows very good composure out on that mound.
Danny Valencia makes his first appearance at first base in the big leagues.
Steve Tollison remains in the game and takes over at 3rd base for Kawasaki.
Aaron Sanchez working to Dustin Pedroia. Pedroia was the first batter Sanchez faced in his big league career. Reyes at short, throws on the run, scooped by Valencia. How about getting the test right off the bat? Nice play on both ends.
Easy. Never played there in the big leagues. Looks like he's been there for 15 years. Said he played a little bit in the minor leagues there, played a little bit in college. And watch this play. It's off the end of the bat by Pedroia. Reyes across the diamond, and you can see how Valencia smothered that one. Get out there and pick it.
Danny Valencia played a total of 28 games at first base over 4 seasons in the minor leagues. So this play is under review. And obviously it's an important play. Dustin Pedroia was called out at first base, 6-3. Reyes throwing on the run. Valencia digs out the short hop. And the call on the field was that Pedroia was out. Let's give you another angle here. Valencia shoots it.
Out.
He's out. He is. Pedroia's foot is still well in the air as Valencia has that ball in his glove.
That one is going to stand right there. Before the umpires came over to review this one, John Gibbons had come out of the dugout like he was going to make a pitching change. So this will be interesting. somewhat surprised that Sanchez is into the game. He threw 2 innings the other day, just one day off before coming in here. Maybe his job was come in and just face one batter.
So Sanchez standing in front of the mound. Brett Cecil is standing by in a bullpen. Ortiz would be the next batter as soon as we resume play. Ortiz against Cecil, 4 for 21. Let's check out Valencia and see if his foot stays on the bag. Boy, that's a revealing angle right there. Pedroia is indeed called out. The call on the field stands. Mike Winters was the crew chief involved. Valencia, his first big league play at first base, and John Gibbons said, give me the left-hander. So Sanchez comes in to face one batter. He gets Dustin Pedroia. Brett Cecil will come on to face David Ortiz when we come back. The Blue Jays have a 2-run lead. Brett Cecil into the game to make his 43rd appearance. He threw 7 pitches on Sunday against the Yankees.
Very good earned run average at 350. Left-handers actually hitting higher against Brett Cecil this year than the right-handers. He has handled David Ortiz. That's the first guy that he was going to face here in the 8th inning. David Ortiz in his career versus Brett Cecil, just 4 for 21. John Gibbons had an idea of what he wanted to do here in the 8th inning. 2-run lead. He's got Jansen for the 9th. In the 8th inning, he's splitting it up.
Ortiz jumps back from an inside fastball. It was all set up because Stroman goes 7 innings. Johnny Gomes, the right-handed hitter, has come out. In the on-deck circle, he'll bat for Mike Karp. This is the guy Cecil has to get.
Yep.
David Ortiz. If he hits one 500 feet, you still have a 1-run lead, and you have to go after him.
This is probably the only batter he's going to face.
A little cutter to get that in there for his strike. McGowan is ready. He was throwing last inning as well. 2-1 to Ortiz. Now the count is even. Blue Jays have really done a good job pitching to David Ortiz this season. Coming into this game, he had a 184 batting average. Just 7 for 38. He's 0 for 2 tonight.
He's hit a share of home runs against the Blue Jays.
He's hit 5 home runs this year. But the Blue Jays lead the season series 8-3. Big strikeout for Cecil. He came right at Ortiz and strikes him out. 2 down. That looked like it was a breaking ball. It may have backed up. You can see the grip. That's that curveball. But it didn't have much of a break and it stayed up. But we have talked about it throughout the season series. David Ortiz is a much better low ball hitter than a high ball hitter.
And that one was up. Great call right there, and he just can't catch up to it.
So now Johnny Gomes will be announced as the pinch hitter. Cecil will stay in the game, and why not? You still have a 2-run lead.
And another left-hander on deck. That if Johnny Gomes did get on right here, then Drew would represent the tying run. So Cecil will face Gomes.
Gomes is 5 for 8 against Brett Cecil. But again, you mentioned the fact the Blue Jays are down a pitcher in the bullpen. And there is always the possibility of extra innings. So you got to keep some arms in reserve. Two and 0.
Gomes really hits left-handers. He stays right in there and takes the breaking ball away from him. Hitting over 300 against him. 4 of his home runs this year have come against lefties.
Three and 0. Stephen Drew is on deck. Brett Cecil in relief of Aaron Sanchez. Sanchez came into the game and got Dustin Pedroia to ground out to short. Johnny Gomes is batting for Mike Carp. Eighth inning, the Blue Jays lead it 3-1. Long drive down the left side, but that's a foul ball.
The 2014 Honda Civic, Canada's best-selling car 16 years in a row, and the official vehicle of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Blue Jays lead 3-1. The Yankees are tied with the Rangers 3-3. The Angels and the Orioles are tied at 6-6. Three and 2, 2 outs. Gomes walks. So now Cecil will deal with the left-handed hitting Stephen Drew. Marcus Stroman, the starter here tonight. 7 innings, 6 hits. He allowed just 1 run. He walked 2 and struck out 8 through 115 pitches. And he was as fresh in the 7th as he was in the 1st.
So that 115 pitches ties his career high in a ball game.
Stephen Drew cuts on the first pitch and falls behind.
The 8 strikeouts represents his career high in a ball game.
Ball and a strike.
Well, that one was closer than the first one.
Right back to the mound. Cecil takes his time and gets out of the inning. Good defensive play to start the inning. Cecil gets Stephen Drew. We'll go to the ninth. The Blue Jays lead at 3-1. Game 3-3 in the fifth, and you just tell it it's 4-1. How about that? So you see the standings in the East. Toronto 2 behind of the front-running Orioles. The Orioles, according to the scoreboard here at Fenway, are tied 6-6. Junichi Tazawa makes his first appearance in this series. He takes over for Andrew Miller, who had a good inning.
You look at the great numbers that Tazawa has put up this year in the 47 games, a 4-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. He's averaging a strikeout per inning. ERA of 3.07. He has a losing record, but don't tell the Blue Jays that, because they have really pounded him.
This season, the Blue Jays have hit .500 against Tazawa. Johnny Gomes, the pinch hitter, takes over in left field. Daniel Nava moves from left field to first base, taking over from Mike Cart. Tazawa making his 4th appearance against the Blue Jays. He's given up 6 hits and 2 home runs to the Jays this season. Ryan Goins 1 for 3 tonight. When you look at Tazawa and his stuff, and you look at what he's done against the rest of the league, it's really surprising that the Blue Jays have hit him as hard as they have. 18 career home runs allowed. 7 of them have come at the hands of the Blue Jays.
Bautista has one against him this year. Juan Francisco has one against him. Adam Lynn's had a couple of them in his career against Tazawa.
Bouncing ball. Pedroia waits on it, goes to a knee and throws out Goins. 1 down. It's a 3-1 Blue Jays lead. With that, Casey Jansen starting to heat it up down in the Blue Jays bullpen. Jansen 16 for 18 in saves this season. Anthony Gose with the big hit tonight. A 2-out, 2-run double in the fourth. That has capped the scoring to this point. 3-1 Blue Jays. Gose continues to have an impact, whether it's with his glove. He made a nice running catch earlier in this game. Take a hit away from a Red Sox hitter.
Had the big double that you talked about. He also got a runner in the scoring position trying to bunt his way on last time.
Like a pretty good splitter right there from Tazawa.
Yeah, he's got a good fastball, low 90s to mid 90s fastball. A little bit of a breaking ball, but his big pitch, where he's averaging a strikeout per inning, is that hard splitter. Got to lay off of that. Make sure he throws it for a strike.
Tazawa has given up a 352 batting average to the Blue Jays. He handles everybody else in baseball very well, not the Blue Jays. Gose drills it into center. Another 2-strike hit for Anthony Gose. Good night for Gose at the plate. He's 2 for 4. Blue Jays will play the series finale tomorrow. The veteran Mark Burley will go up against the hard-throwing John Lester. Lester is on a roll. He is really throwing the ball well. Lester for the season 10-7 with a 252 earned run average. There's been a lot of speculation the Red Sox will trade John Lester before the trade deadline. That's 4 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday.
We are hearing Pittsburgh's name tonight.
Isn't that an interesting name?
For a destination for John Lester.
Pittsburgh is loaded with young position players. Outfielders especially. There goes Gose, and Reyes hits it through the vacated shortstop hole. Anthony Gose goes first to third. Reyes with his second hit of the night. Gose broke for second. It pulled Drew away from his defensive position at short and opened up the hole.
Time to make a video right here at how to run the hit and run right here. Gose takes off. The shortstop covers. And Jose Reyes finds a hole on the left side. Blue Jays back in business, first and third, and just 1 out.
2 more hits for the Blue Jays against Junichi Tazawa. It's absolutely incredible how well they have hit against Tazawa. He has pitched a total of 17 in the third innings. He has now given up 27 hits.
That's against the Blue Jays. Everybody else, he's
lights out.
Lights out.
Melky Cabrera, he's 1 for 4. Reyes is 19 for 20 in steals this season.
One of the best percentages in baseball. Not a bad time to see if he can get himself in the scoring position and stay out of the double play.
Melky takes a strike. Blue Jays lead it 3-1. They've out-hit the Red Sox 11-6. On the ground. Gose coming home. He's going to score as Cabrera is out at first. Melky picks up his 59th RBI. He hit it in a good spot. Reyes moves into scoring position, and the Blue Jays have expanded their lead to 4-1.
That's what speed will do for you right there. It'll get you a run. Really no chance to turn 2 on that. You're no chance to get Ghost at the plate. Reyes at second base. The only play for Drew is over at first base, and it's an RBI ground out.
Good job by Melky. Bautista batting with Reyes at second. Way off the plate outside. One home run against Tazawa for Bautista. The Blue Jays have now doubled up the Red Sox in hits, 12-6. Bautista got that backup breaking ball. Came right inside, and he was able to foul it off.
That was the first pitch he threw to him for strike 1. I bet you Jose wants that one back. That was spinning right into his wheelhouse.
McGowan is continuing to stay loose just in case the Blue Jays add another run. Casey Jansen has warmed up. He is standing by ready. He too is just kind of moving around to stay loose. It is a save situation as we speak.
Jose knocks a run in here, or Blue Jays score another run or two. Then Dustin McGowan will be in the ball game. Non-save situation.
Bautista with 61 ribbies so far this season. Staying back, guarding against that splitter. He's late on the fastball, but stays alive.
Such an intelligent hitter. He always has a plan up there, an idea of what he wants to do. He had that game where in New York against Kuroda, he thought he would see a breaking ball from Kuroda. He did. He took it. Kevin Seitzer says, way to take that ball. He goes, I was taking all the way. I just wanted to see it slider one time. Next pitch, he hit a home run.
He goes around and strikes out. That ends the inning. Blue Jays add a run here in the ninth. Casey Jansen comes out of the Blue Jays bullpen with a save on the line, trying to make a winner out of Marcus Stroman. Atlanta. In L.A. to take on the Dodgers. The Braves will send Aaron Harang to the mound against Josh Beckett. The Dodgers have won 3 in a row. The Giants in second place in the NL West have lost 5 in a row. Atlanta a half a game behind the Washington Nationals as the Braves have won 3 in a row. So good baseball matchup coming up next on Pacific. But right now it's Casey Janssen trying to close out the Red Sox and earn his 17th save.
Last time he was on the mound, he picked up his 16th save. That was on Sunday in New York. An inning, had a strikeout. 16 for 18 in save opportunities here. A very good earned run average at 2.73. He's got a couple of ways to get you out. He comes right after you with that fastball, and he can cut it on you. Like that one right there.
Casey Janssen is a strike-throwing machine. He doesn't overpower you, but he locates. He's ahead 0-2. Bogaerts has struck out twice tonight.
Over the last 2 years, he's got the second best conversion rate in saves in the American League. And he does it with smarts, and you're right, throwing strikes.
Casey Janssen against the Red Sox, a perfect 9 for 9 in save opportunities. There's a deep drive to left. Bogaerts has hit a home run. Big insurance run for the Jays in the top of the inning. For Bogaerts, his second home run of the season.
Number 8 on the year. Casey just missed his spots. Got ahead, 2 strikes, wasted a pitch, and then he wanted to go fastball one more time away. It leaked back out over the plate. You can see where Navarro is set up over the middle of the plate and gets that run back, but the Blue Jays scored at the top of the inning.
So now it's a 2-run lead. Jackie Bradley Jr. Bradley Jr. in the 8th spot in the Red Sox lineup. Now it's 2 balls and a strike, and the fans here at Fenway trying to rally the home team. Popped up. Collison, the third baseman, calling for it. 1 down. Now it's time for a preview of what's coming up next on Connected. Here's Ken Reed and Ivanka Osman. Thank you, Ivanka. That's coming up right after this ball game. 1 out to young catcher Christian Vasquez. First pitch strike. Marcus Stroman, the starter tonight, went 7 innings, allowed 1 earned run. His starter's ERA now at 2.12. Breaking ball down and away. Janssen is ahead 0-2.
Throw the same pitch right here. Don't waste one. He missed that one by a foot. Do it again.
Bautista was shaded over near the line. He gets there and makes the out. 2 down. Aaron Sanchez worked a third of an inning. He got Dustin Pedroia to start the bottom of the inning. Cecil came in and struck out David Ortiz. And after walking Johnny Gomes, the pinch hitter, Cecil got Stephen Drew to end the 8th. Now Casey Janssen, a leadoff home run. And now there are 2 outs. Back to the top of the order for Brock Holt, who has 2 hits tonight.
Colby Rasmus has had a good night tonight. He got the Blue Jays' first run with a home run to center field. He also singled and scored in the fourth. Boy, two perfect pitches.
Two perfect pitches, 0-2. Red Sox down to their final strike. Mark Burley will go to the hill tomorrow. He'll be opposed by John Lester. Casey Janssen, including this home run tonight, has allowed 6 earned runs and 3 home runs in his last 6 appearances. But you have to cut him some slack because he came back under the weather after getting sick over the All-Star break.
And 2 of those were not save opportunities. 2 of those outings were not save opportunities, where you just don't have the same juices flowing as you do when you've got a save on the line.
Jansen gave up a 2-run home run Saturday afternoon to Carlos Beltran at Yankee Stadium. Breaking ball. 2 balls and 2 strikes. If Holt could reach, that would bring the tying run to the plate. Ripped foul.
Not a bad idea. Cut fastball right in on his hands. Just has to get that ball a little bit lower. Against left-handers, he likes to backdoor that pitch also. Tries to get the left-handers to give up on it. It's a lot of called strike 3.
That ball gets away, and Navarro doesn't think it's a foul tip, but the home plate umpire, Todd Woodring, called it a foul tip. And look at Navarro. He can't believe it. And the umpire is saying, no, he foul tipped. The umpire signals. Watch this. He never touched it.
No, he didn't.
He never fouled it off, but Holt just stood right there. The umpire had his hand in the air indicating foul ball. And Navarro knew immediately. He went after it. Tough pitch to take.
There it was right there. That cutter down and away to a left-hander. Try to get him to give up on it, but it's just off the plate.
Full count, 2 outs. Bouncing ball. Valencia tosses to Jansen. Ball game. Casey Jansen picks up his 17th save. Marcus Stroman, his 7th win. And Stroman's ERA drops to 2.12 as a starter. Big night for the offense once again. 4 runs on 12 hits. Colby Erasmus with a solo home run got it started.